What is up, guys? This is your friend TeamLead again, and today I bring you another cool topic, at least in my mind. Basically this system for HR that I created myself. It's called Look Has Lab, the correct system for HR people. And hey, I've been to quite a few interviews over my life, and here are the key facts. The basic thing is that current state of HR is really sad, and let me just make a few points here and you will understand yourself what I mean by this. So I think it's fair to say that right now we have at least 4 big, huge issues. The first issue being is that most HR people only aggregate but do not train healthy fellow workers. And this is a very simple case, and what I mean by this is the most companies eventually had 3, 4, 5, even few teams of just HR personnel, and I'm always asking them, what are we doing? Are they training? Do you have a lot of people that needs training? Are they coaching? Are they building some sort of life plans? What's up with that? Why do we need so many HR people? And the CEOs usually explain to me that they are aggregating, and since one person is doing a slow job of aggregation, they need more people to do it faster. So basically the example here is, instead of finding a solution to mine coal faster, you're just hiring more workers who just basically bring the mining tool from Minecraft and just beats the rock and is trying to find the coal. So this is the same analogy here. You just hire more people to do the exact same job over and over again, right? The other point here is that most HR people do not even ECMAScript. Now, if you don't know what ECMAScript is, you can obviously Google, but by this point I mean that a lot of HR industry professionals, at least who call themselves professionals, don't know the difference between Java and JavaScript, and that's really sad. And the ones who do know the difference, then you ask them, okay, so what's the difference between .NET and .NET Core? And then their knowledge stops. And again, this is super silly thing. You can just Google that. It will take you at least 2 or 3 minutes, and you'll at least in theory understand what's the difference between those frameworks. And no one's asking you to dive deep into the architectural decisions, but you can at least understand and or know that one was the older one and the new is the the new one where you can run it on Linux. If you know this much, come on guy, that's quite enough. But to know at least much is needed. Now, the other point is good interview, never had one. So I'm not saying I didn't have fine or interviews that went well, but structurally speaking, they were super chaotic. I mean, if I were to try to aggregate the data from those interviews, I would need to record them, then do some sort of speech-to-text analysis and try to get some data from keywords, rather than going from something from linear and understanding if I am okay for that position and not. And this is a super huge problem for both sides. For one side, you're getting judged basically by how you look, and for me as a developer, I do want to have feedback, right? We as developers, we're working with data, so data is cool. So can you provide me a real data in areas I need improvement? And it's not enough to say that, well, your soft skills were not up to par. What do you mean by that? What exact areas are not to par? Or I don't know, we're thinking that your hard skills are not that great. Again, can you prove it? Because in my mind I do have certain degree of understanding, and in some areas I do believe I'm quite okay developer. In others I'm not that great. But again, I need to know what areas exactly I'm lacking so that I can become a better developer, right? But if you just say for someone, hey, I think you're not super senior developer, you're just a starting senior, that doesn't explain much. If you call someone a mid developer, then he thinks he's a senior developer, again, you're just basically telling me off and you're not explaining much, and that's bad. Now, the other key point I do want to make here is the usage of data. I have been doing HR training for almost a year now, and I'm always asking HR people, what do you do with candidates that do not pass? So say we just basically threw out that to the trash bin. And I'm like, but why? Why are you not making them into data and seeing what is working for you and what is not, right? This is just, the very simple concept. How I would perceive it, I'll make a lot of other videos concerning HR, but just for this video I'll say this. The very first thing I would do, I would ask a possible candidate to do certain tests, right? And then those tests could be quantified. For example, if you do a test called Myers-Briggs, you'll see your personality type, and you can already see that, for example, for our company, this type of personality is not working. And that's data you can work with. That's data you can visualize and do something with. Rather than, we had a candidate called Tom and he didn't work for us. But, and why didn't he work for us? Well, our person who interviewed him thought that he was not that great of the person. Again, it's super subjective, right? Because if you're a bit of a a-hole, or if someone will not understand exactly what you mean by your expression, by your words, you will fail. And coming to the feedback part, you will not even receive a correct feedback, right? I think I proved you a bit that the sad state of HR is really, really well said. I'm proposing a system called, as you saw from the title, Look Has Lab. So the first part is look. What do you mean by look? I mean look out and for what he looks like. I'll talk about a bit later, and check out other kings. As the name implies, you just have to look really well into the person you are interviewing. And for the lookout part, I would always check two basic things. The first thing is I'm checking if the person would work out for our client. It doesn't necessarily work for each and every type of situation, because there are different type of jobs. For example, salesperson do a lot of B2B or B2C stuff, and developers don't interact with clients that much. But I'm thinking, just by imagining this, I would see if such a need would arise, would that person be able to communicate well with the client or not? And the other thing, I'm trying to imagine that person working into specific team. And the keyword here is being the specific, not any and each and every possible team in your company, because there are a lot of different teams, there are a lot of different dynamics even in one company. You have to imagine if that person would work for that specific team. How can you do it? Well, I'm gonna make more videos about how to do that exactly, but for now, if you understand what kind of team there is and you know the people there, you'll have a basic understanding if that person is working for you or not. Now, what are the other possible kings, or what there are as such, right? I would see, for example, if the person is a smoker. That's a very simple thing, and that's just an example, but if he came smelling like an ashtray, and said person will need to go and do interviews with, some sort of clients, I'm not sure that's the best way to perceive. The other point here could be, is he using an intimidating body language? If he's sitting like, yes, I do know the answer to this question. Yes, how can you ask me such? I know every answer to every question. The idea is you just basically looking for different type of kinks that could hinder his position. It wouldn't be a showstopper per se, but all of these things you can point or basically check as red flags, and if you see if the sum of red flags is too high of a number, right? And there's actually a list. Now, the other part is has. So has is basically hard skills and the bridge between soft skills. So hard skills are very easy to explain. If someone is a C# developer, so his hard skill is a C# language, or rather usage of C# language. And these soft skills are actually the way someone communicates. So I can put it into another words. Imagine a hard skill is an ability to achieve something. Now you're trying to cut down a tree, so your ability to do that could be considered your hard skill. Now the ability to communicate with other workers and to communicate what you're doing could be considered as a soft skill. And the end part, as I noted as a bridge, what I'm calling a bridge here is basically a culture fitness. If someone has great hard skills and soft skills, what's standing in between? His cultural skills. And by cultural, I mean that different type of companies has a lot of going on. For example, there are companies which require you to wear suits all the time, right? You can do that, and if, for example, for you wearing a suit is a huge hindrance, it's not just gonna work. That type of culture would not work for you, and that's okay. You don't need to be a people pleaser each and every time and, you know, try to say, yeah, I love suits, I super love them, even though you hate them, and anyone who dares and, you know, presents some sort of third grade teacher that you really hated when you went to school, right? Now, the lab part is a bit harder to understand. It's basically learning, asset, and passion. Now I'm gonna go a bit more into detail and explain why those things are super important. Now, learning. How can we say what a learning is? So basically, here's an excerpt from Wikipedia. Learning is the process of acquiring new or modifying existing knowledge, behavior, skills, values, or preferences. Basically, it's the ability to learn something, right? Now, why I am putting learning as here and why I'm saying this is super important. Now, imagine someone is good at X skill, right? Let's call it React. Someone is good at React development. And let's imagine after 2 years time will be no React framework / library whatsoever, right? Then there's gonna be a new thing. Now you are having a person who's good at something and he cannot learn new things. So I would say learning trumps any existing skills, because the best skill you can have is actually ability to learn something. If you can learn, you're more important person than someone who just, you know, learned something at one point in his life and he stopped. So this is just for me. Now, asset. What does it mean to be an asset? It's basically an added value for a company. How can you say if someone is an asset to your company? Well, think about this way. Imagine having an atomic bomb. You might not necessarily use it all the time, right? But just having it gives you power. So if some candidate comes in and he, again, doesn't have the exact skills that your company requires at this point in time, but he, for example, has a community of like-minded professionals. Let's give an example. There comes a person who has his own Java development group, and that group consists of, let's say, 10,000 Java developers. Even if this person isn't the best Java developer in the world or the best developer by your standards, just by taking such person into your company, he can help you, you know, get more developers, because again, he's a part of a big community. And if he's an influencer there, he can generate more value from that than from his, for example, hard skills. So you really need to take this into bigger consideration. You need to see the bigger picture. If someone is just lacking some skills, those things can be trained. Now imagine if each and every person in your company could bring you this sort of a hidden value that creates your company like richness, your company culture. It just becomes better by that person being in said company, right? So this is someone being an asset. And the third thing is passion. why I'm saying passion and why I'm just like putting it out there. You need to listen to people like Simon Sinek. He explains it in more words and he explains why that's great. But just for me myself, passion is, well, it says here, it is a particular use in the context of romance or sexual desire. Not necessarily, it can also be used for something you really want to achieve. So the passion, from Greek to suffer, to be acted on, I really agree with this term. If someone is passionate to complete a task, even again if he's lacking, for example, skills, if he's lacking, I don't know, money, but he really wants to achieve something, he'll strive to do it. And he'll put himself, he'll try to raise money, he'll try to basically chew a brick in order to achieve his dreams. If you find a person who's really passionate about something, everything else is just not that important. This is one of the greatest, if not the greatest, checkbox someone can be checked on, right? Now, is there a pyramid of importance? Of course. On the top we have look, then we have has, and then we have lab. If someone isn't that great on the look part, yeah, that's passable. He have some sort of kinks. We all do. We all have some weird psychological problems and whatever, right? If he's lacking a soft skills, hard skills, and culture and all that, that's not great. That's gonna be a little bit of a showstopper. But if he is not good at lab part, that person is just basically useless. You can, I don't know, build a drone and the drone will do his job, and that's gonna be just better, right? What is the red ticks? The red ticks is basically the idea that someone can make a certain amount of mistakes, but if they're making too much of it, I consider that candidate not good enough. By my understanding, look can have up to 3 red ticks. So remember when I said if someone is a smoker. If you're smoking yourself or you have other people, company who is a smokers, that's not super huge of an issue. You can just put 1 red tick. If his body language is not that great, but again, he's not gonna work that much with clients, and if he has some different type of issues, but those issues are not showstopper, you can have up to 3 red check boxes in this case, and most people would still hire such a person, right? Because think of this look part as something that can be mended, right? It's just basically someone just doesn't know how to dress properly, so you can address that by saying, John, can you wear better suits, or can you wear better things, and that's gonna be fixed just by saying that, right? Has can have up to 2 red ticks. I would say 1 red tick would be a showstopper, but since that would be too harsh, so I'm allowing 2 red ticks. So in other words, if someone has great hard skills and he's not that good at being a, people's person, and his cultural fitness isn't that great, such person should still be hired. Or in other case, if person is great at communication, but his hard skills are somewhat lacking, again, such person could get hired, but we need to look at lab, the last part. And I do believe the last part can have only 1 red tick. You can fail only in learning, asset, or passion. That's 3 things. You cannot fail at 3. You can only fail at 1. So for example, if someone isn't a great learner, I would consider that a huge disadvantage, but such person can still be super passionate and he can still achieve dreams, not by learning how to do it himself, but empowering others. If he's a great asset, he can have other abilities that would help your company, even though he's not that great of a learner, right? Again, if he's great at learning and he's huge asset to your company, but he's not that passionate about things, maybe that's just some point in his life. If he can still learn, he can bring more value, and if he's an asset, he's already bringing more value. If someone is not an asset, if someone is great at learning and he's super passionate about doing something, but he just doesn't have that extra value to bring on the table, again, that's not a showstopper, since he can learn new technologies. That's really good. and he's really passionate about what he's doing, right? But if you're failing at more than 2, I do believe that's just not the way to go. This is basically my thoughts on the matter. Thank you for watching this. I'll be making more videos about the HR part and explaining what to do and what not to do and what could be done better. Yeah, so thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and if you can, share this video